It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie.
Well, hello and welcome, new friends and old from near and afar. I'm your host, Bonnie Sher, and I'm here to guide you through the worlds of entertainment, the great boomer generation, and the type 1 diabetes community. Please share your thoughts. Feel free to call in. Call-in number is 323-843-2826 or tweet the hashtag #BShareRadio. Before we get the show on the road with John Tarnoff, author of Boomer Reinvention, and later Sharon Roberson, our T1 co-host this week, I'd like to acknowledge jazz great Wayne Cobb for my super duper hero theme song. And while we're at it, I'd like to acknowledge Corey Bone of Crown and Anchor Jewelry. You can visit Crown and Anchor Jewelry on SG.com for more information on the pieces they allow me to wear, like the freshwater pearls, in exchange for this promotional message. When we come back, we're going to be chatting with John Tarnoff.
Your life story is more than the things you do. It's a story built on the moments you make today and the impact you have on others. How big is your story going to be? Live your legend.
Welcome back. John Tarnoff is a reinvention coach who provides career counseling for baby boomers and late career professionals looking to defy ageism, work beyond retirement, which is pretty much the case for a lot of us now, and pivot to a new job or new business as a second act. I've always thought of myself as a second actor. And now, John's been coaching for quite a while, but now John has written a book entitled, wait for it, Boomer Reinvention. Welcome, John.
Good to be here, Bonnie. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming in. Let's just go right for it. I know that this has just come out. Actually, what was it?
February 7th.
February 7th. So we're getting this straight off the presses. And I know this is something that has been in my mind for years, is the difference now with our generation, with the great boomer generation who has, I think we've lost the idea about that gold watch after 25 years. That is not a goal anymore.
That's right. That's gone.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons for that.
Right.
It's a different time.
Right. Well, that's the interesting thing, and that's kind of one of the things that prompted me to write the book, is this realization, particularly coming out of the recession, that this idea of the gold watch was elusive at best, and really kind of a myth that we grew up with, which now has turned out to be a false hope. When you think about all of this perfect storm that's kind of come together for us, longevity, 25% of people who hit 65 today will likely live past 90, according to the Census Bureau. So we have to plan for longer lives than when the current retirement system was first instituted back in the 1930s or before even. We also want to work longer. I think we're a generation that has this reputation for being engaged and having a strong work ethic, and we just don't see the need to stop. We don't want to kind of just fade away and go to Arizona and play golf and go on cruises all the time. And then, of course, we really can't afford to retire. That's the hard truth of it, that not only do we have low retirement savings, but I think there's an argument to be made that the financial industry didn't necessarily have our back, and that the
Does it yet, do you think?
Well, that's a whole separate conversation.
Okay.
I would say no, but and also the compact that we had between corporations and workers, where the percentage of defined benefits plans that used to really be the norm for retirement has pretty much gone away. I think it's under 20%. I think it's something like 16% of pensions are now defined benefit versus defined contribution, as in 401ks. So there are a lot of factors that have gone into this situation that we're in, and rather than kind of whine about this or complain about this or try to figure out what government's supposed to do or someone's supposed to do about this, I think we need to take control of the situation ourselves, and this is why I advocate this idea that we reinvent our careers.
From what I've seen that I've been able to read, also, can we talk a little bit about how this all came about for you? Now, I mentioned to our audience that you were and still are coaching. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what that entails? Who needs a coach? How does one reach out? All that good stuff.
Right. Well, the distinction, I think, between a coach and a therapist is something which some people are not quite clear about. But I think you have to look at the sports analogy. So as a coach, I'm really here to encourage you to stay on your program, to figure out what your program is. In this case, as a reinvention career coach, the program is about getting your second act career together. And for me, the distinction that I think I bring to the table is that I'm not a HR-based, assessment-based coach who is going to run you through a bunch of tests and try to help you figure out what job out there you could fit yourself into. I think that for younger people who don't quite have the experience or don't quite have the self-awareness that you get when you get older, that's an applicable way of going about it. But part of the problem, I think, for older professionals is that we kind of know too much. We kind of know too much about ourselves, about what we like to do, about how the business works, and we don't quite fit in the same way that we might have when we were in our 30s or even in our 40s. So I think that the job is inside us, and that the process of figuring out what your second act is a lot about figuring out who you are and what you want to do and where you can be most useful. That's really the key to it, because it's not about following your bliss, which was a great idea, and I love Joseph Campbell and all of those wonderful principles. But when it comes down to practicality, you're going to have to find a job or a career or an avocation that's going to pay you, and it's going to pay you well enough. And to do that, it's got to be useful. It's got to have an application. You got to have an audience. You got to have a market.
Okay, do me a favor, please, and hold that thought, John. We're going to take a break, and when we return, I want to hear more about this.
Since when did experience become something to hide? I say we own it. Lose all that negativity. Just let it go. It's just bad energy. Oh, and lose those terrible black balloons they give you on your 50th. What's up with that?
Hey, we hear you. That's why our members love AARP the magazine. It celebrates you with fun and provocative content, from lifestyle and entertainment to in-depth reporting. And it's just one of the great benefits of membership.
If you don't think this is right for me when you think AARP, then you don't know ARP. Get to know us at aarp.org/possibilities.
To be at peace with myself is the most prominent thing, and I am at peace with myself. I didn't deal this deck, I'm just playing the game. That's all. That's it. Meals on Wheels has given me a mode of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. I've been making sure they get the nutrition that I need, and it's a balanced meal. My name is Maurice McGriff. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
You are tuned into the Bonnie Sher Show, and we have the pleasure of chatting with John Tarnoff, reinvention coach and author of Boomer Reinvention. So let's go back to what you were saying.
Right. So the question again of why or how you work with a coach, or how I work as a coach, is about finding that career that's inside you, and then using all of the tools of both the behavioral background that I come from a psychological standpoint, but also understanding how technology can be your friend, and how we are so plugged in through social media that the way to find the job, to actually nail that job, is not through submitting your resume to job postings that you may see online, but by developing an active network. And it really, in a world where 85% of jobs are filled by referrals, you can't expect that submitting your resume is going to produce results.
On its own, just as that. I know that, I know because I read, that you come from a show business background.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, especially having worn as many hats as you did in that arena, we were sort of predisposed to this, because as an actor,
Yes.
as a singer, it's always a
Right,
different.
right.
It's a different gig.
Yeah. Well, you get it. I mean, this is the funny realization that I've had. I got into the entertainment business in 1974 and worked in distribution for a little while. Was a literary agent representing writers and directors for TV and films. Got into the production executive world, working for MGM through the early 80s, and then worked at a couple of other studios. In the 90s, kind of burned out on that, went into technology. I had a startup during the technology bubble, and then my career really hit a wall when the bubble burst in 2001. My startup went down along with everything else, and I realized that I needed to reinvent myself. But up to that point, I think the turbulence that exists in the entertainment business, which used to be, I think, restricted to this kind of creative, tumultuous business, that disruption and that volatility is now something that you find in the economy at large. And this has really been the gift, if you will, of technology over the last 20 years. The acceleration, the disruption, the fact that you can't really put a 5-year business plan together. At most you're looking at 24, 36 months to launch and to really get a business up and running. So the world has kind of shifted in our direction, for better or for worse. And having that background, and I like to dine out on the fact that in my entertainment career, 18 jobs over 35 years, fired from 7 of them. That makes me that makes me having been fired 39% of the time in my career. I
Only 39?
Only 39%. So that's a pretty good record. I think most people would be and are, when I talk about this, they get nervous. I remember someone recently said to me they had heard, they were talking to a friend and said, this guy says he's been fired 39% of the time, and the friend said, I don't know if I would talk so much about that, right? Because we have this idea that getting fired is shameful, and in our generation, it was. It meant that you couldn't hold a job because you were supposed to be able to get hired and work hard and get promoted and ride your career through that company. And if something went wrong, it was your fault. But today, in a business that's changing so fast, it's really about fit. And we have to be prepared for the fact that we may not be the right fit for the job we've got, the company we're working with, as things change. And we have to adapt.
Again, I'm going to bring that back to even auditions. I mean,
Sure.
as actors going out, it's not, let's
That's exactly
just
the
go
same
for
thing.
it. That you're probably not a lousy actor.
Right.
But they've got somebody else in mind,
Right.
and that's not your
Yeah.
fault. And if you
Yeah.
go out on those auditions thinking,
Right.
well, I've got to be,
Right.
no, they know what they want.
You know, I have a great story about that. Years and years ago, and this is maybe kind of one of my first insightful moments about the question of career reinvention and career adaptability. I was at a party years ago. I must have been in my 20s or my 30s, and I was talking to a woman who was an actress, and at one point I said to her, look, I got to ask you this question. How do you deal with auditions? You seem to be really positive about yourself, about the business, and so many people are so disillusioned and so bitter at this point about what they have to go through as actors and performers in this business. And she said, I used to be that way. I used to hate going to auditions. I used to hate getting rejected for a part. But what I came to realize is that if they say no, if they turn me down for that part, I have still helped them figure out what it is that they are ultimately looking for. So I realize that no matter what happens, whether I get the part or I don't get the part, I have been part of the process and I have been part of the decision making. So I'm grateful every time I go in. I go in believing that I am there to show them one way of going about it, and whatever happens, I feel it's a win. And I think that's an attitude that all of us can do well to adopt.
Absolutely. And you kind of take that personal, you want to think that it's a personal decision, but you weren't the right person.
Yeah.
But that is tough to deal with, though.
Sure. I think you have to really develop.
I got a lot
sense.
of better at it as I aged.
Right.
I was disgusting.
Right.
I just
It's hard. Yeah.
It was hard, and it was like, well, gee, maybe I should have gone to medical school,
Right.
or made me question everything.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people
It's
that I'm
nice to age up. I
Right.
really have to say, it's not as awful as it had been made out
Right.
to be.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people who are aging up, as you say, are confronting some of these questions that you or I may have confronted earlier in our careers because of the business we were in. And they're now having to deal with this at a later stage. And I think they feel very vulnerable and they feel very disempowered. And part of the message that I'm trying to convey in the book is that you are empowered. You are empowered to take control of your own career, and that there are ways that you can go about doing it, and that there's actually success out there for you. There was a recent study that I just saw that surveyed a bunch of late career professionals who had reinvented themselves, and the overwhelming percentage, over 80% of them, said that they were successful in their reinvention. So there is hope.
Well, I'm excited about that. Now, before we let you go, please let our audience know how they can follow you, how they can reach you or reach out to you.
Right. Very easy.
Well, then tell them.
Sure.
Please.
So all you need to know is know the name. It's John Tarnoff, JohnTarnoff as in Frank. And the website is johntarnoff.com. And if you enter those two words into Google, you'll find a whole listing of stuff, including the website for the book, which is boomerreinvention.com. And the book is available right now on Amazon.
And if people would like to see you as a coach or chat with you, if they are here in...
you can find a link on the website.
I bet you also work by Skype, and so they don't
do.
necessarily have to be right here in Southern California.
Most of my work is remote, by Skype and phone. So on the website, johntarnoff.com, you can sign up, and I can do a complimentary session with you.
Well, John, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For coming in. Wish you all the best with the book. And I already feel that there are a lot of people who are really going to benefit by the book. And icing on the cake, my goodness, to be able to have you as a coach would just be phenomenal. So, okay, and... thank you for being here. As we go to break, I'd like to acknowledge the important work of the Diabetes Research Institute and encourage you to please support their efforts. You can visit them online at diabetesresearch.org. Up next will be our song of the day, I Thought About You, sung by the marvelous Thos Shipley. I'm going to try that again. Thos Shipley. But for now, take it away a minute. Let's roll this.
Type 1 diabetes can be living in anyone.
Type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas doesn't produce insulin. It's not caused by your diet. It's not caused by anything you did.
Type 1 diabetes can be very serious.
Blindness, amputation.
Learn more about type 1 diabetes.
Help support JDRF finding a cure.
T1D looks like my brother.
T1D looks like a friend.
Type 1 diabetes looks like me.
I took a trip on a train and I thought about you. I passed a shadowy lane and I thought about you. 2 or 3 cars parked under the stars, winding stream, moon shining down on some little town, with each beam, same old dream. At every stop that we made, oh, I thought about you. But when I pulled down the shade, then I really felt blue. I peeked through the crack, looked at the track, the one going back to you. And what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? I thought about you. Always on my mind. I thought about you.
Being alive. Phew. Okay, well, welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show. So verklempt from that song. Joining me in this segment is Sharon Roberson, a member of the T1D community from the great state of California, my new sister. Say hello to Sharon Roberson. Hello there, Sharon.
Hello, Bonnie.
Sharon, you've been a T1D for quite a while. Would you share your story with us, please?
Well, I was diagnosed at age 9, quite young, and I've had quite a journey with it. It's been, didn't always take great care of myself back then in the olden days, but I, learned that it wasn't going to be a short, happy life. It was going to be a long, miserable life if I didn't behave. So I got my act together and...
Give us an idea. I mean, I don't want to drag you back to that time, but when you say you weren't taking care of yourself, were you skipping insulin? What was going on in your mind and in your action at that time? Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember. Don't we all? Well, at one point, none of you listened to me out there. I went to a talk on diabetes when I was a teenager, and the doctor was talking about how insulin brings carbohydrates and the food you eat into your cells for energy, and if you don't have enough insulin, you excrete everything you eat out, and so you don't get nourished. And I was like, clutching. And so I did that for a period of time.
I hear you.
You know, and I could eat whatever I want and stick thin. And it was a good gig while it lasted until, you know, I was walking around with ketoacidosis all the time. And I don't recommend that to anyone.
No.
Because I did pay the price. I don't know if it was my fault. You know, I don't blame myself for mistakes I've made, because I did the best I could at the time, knowing what I knew. And when I knew better, I did better. But I was a kid, and they gave me an adult disease.
Yes.
You know, and so it was a lot of responsibility to take care of. So consequently, you know, I got through that. But one of the ways, no, I think it was before this happened, my biggest stories that, you know, I had like a Steel Magnolias type story where while I was married, I got pregnant and it caused kidney failures right away. Like within a few weeks, I gained 15 pounds and I was wondering what was going on, and it was all water weight. And there's my beautiful husband up there on the screen I just saw. And he's really a great man. But so I ended up being hospitalized and told I never had kidney failure. I had 100% kidney function. I went to 50% right away. And it was hard, and so I was in the hospital, and I had all these pregnancy specialists, you know, high-risk pregnancy specialists, these nephrologists, everyone coming in, talking to me. I was in a Catholic hospital, and they were saying, well, you know, there's a chance you may not survive, and the child may not survive, and it was a mess. And I was fortunate enough to sounds terrible to say, but I was fortunate enough to have a miscarriage, and so that resolved that. But I was still left with no kidney function, well, 50% function, which I went on the ACE inhibitors, and that really helped, you know, prolong my kidney function. So I went another 11 years before I dropped to 19%, which is the magic. Getting under 20%, you can get listed for a kidney. And so
so you were.
I was. And I was told about this fairy tale called a simultaneous kidney pancreas transplant. And I still didn't believe it, because in the 80s I had met some guy that had a pancreas transplant. He didn't look well. He was all messed up, and I was like, you know, I don't know. This isn't for me, you know. This is too, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And I could lose it, so don't get excited. So, but I had people encourage me to do it, and I did research. My husband did research. You know, we both decided together to get listed for this at UCLA. And it was pretty exciting, except I went still, once I got listed and decided to, I still wouldn't believe it was going to happen. I was, you know, I don't want to be disappointed and, you know, burst the bubble of a dream like that. So every once in a while I had to indulge myself in dreaming, but anyhow, I got a call like 4 weeks after I got on the transplant list, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. I was like, they said, the nurse, the transplant coordinator said, do you have any questions, you know, before you come up? You know, I was supposed to go up to the hospital. And I said, yes, is there a phone number I can call in case I chicken out? And, you know, it's like, is there a phone number I can call?
No, wait, this was for just the pancreas,
No,
or
the
just
ki-
it
the
was
kidney and pancreas.
that was
all-
part of the team.
It was
okay.
a double organ
And that's-
transplant,
I see.
and that's why they called so fast, because you get prioritized when you get 2 organs. So they had
Okay.
you move up on the list. So, fortunately enough, so I go to UCLA and I'm in the hospital room, and there's all these teams coming in, and then they come in later, a long time after they're doing all this testing and stuff, and they're saying, "I'm so sorry, Miss Roberson, this organ isn't suitable for transplant." And I was like, "No worries." They were all sad for me.
Yeah.
I'm
good with that.
I'm good with that. And so, but 6 months after I was listed, it was the real deal. I had one other false alarm call where I didn't have to go up there. They told me I was runner-up, Miss number 2, runner-up in the race to have the
Do you
double.
still get the roses?
I got a sash. But anyhow, I get up to UCLA, and there are 3 simultaneous kidney pancreas transplants in the same time lot as mine. And so I had to prep for the surgery, and I was like, I was number 3, and all the same surgeons did the transplant, and it was an 8-hour surgery, But there's a pancreas surgeon and a kidney surgeon, and when they rolled me into the operating room, I saw my surgeons with these plastic bins like you store your junk in. and they were fixing on the organs and stuff, and I was just, and then I dropped out,
They give you that funny serum just at the right time.
Yeah. But anyhow, so it was successful. The first thing I asked was, what's my blood sugar? When I was coming out of anesthesia, I don't even remember that. That's the first thing I asked. And I went 8 years insulin-free. 8 years, like completely poster child, working out, doing the whole 9 yards. It was great. And I heard you ask other guests, what it felt like. And Bonnie, honest to goodness, it wasn't like anyone else described where I wanted to test my blood sugar or anything. I felt like it was a big, huge mistake. When the diabetes fairies were going over homes, throwing T1 down, they meant to go to the next door neighbor boy, and they got a mistake and hit me. Like, I was never meant to be a diabetic. It just wasn't my gig. And I was fine forgetting about testing my blood sugar, forgetting the whole thing. I still had to be a transplant patient, still, had the complications of diabetes. It wasn't like I felt wonderful or had a bundle of energy.
Did you notice anything resolve during that time, or did you know?
No.
The complications.
No.
Continued.
No, I had it for 38 years at that time, and no, the neuritis actually got worse because the kidneys excrete the medication, and so that's why I was suffering a lot of hypoglycemia, and the kidneys were keeping the medication from my neuritis in me longer, and so then I required more when I went, I had the transplant. So no, there wasn't any relief.
Okay, so as your story progresses, you were successful with the transplant for 8 years. What happened? I mean, I don't mean what happened.
Right.
Obviously, there's a stop,
right.
but how was it? A 1, 2, 3, and oh my goodness! All of a sudden, my glucose looks like I'm a T1, or what happened?
It happened at the beginning of your show. I saw you show a picture of my best friend and I, Debbie, and she and I were out to lunch, and I told her I was feeling a little ill, and then she was in the middle of a sentence. I said, "Debbie, I gotta go. I was something happened and I was sick. And what had happened was they had a connector called a roux limb that connected the pancreas to my small intestines, and it wasn't rejection. It was that stupid, sorry, but that stupid little roux limb decided to kink up and die, and all broke loose in my abdomen, and I had sepsis and E. coli and the whole 9 yards. And fortunately, my husband had come home from work and forced me to go to the hospital. And the surgeon said after he did the repair, this was at my local Hoag Hospital, great hospital, but they don't do transplants. So he did an external drain. He kept my pancreas, did an external drain. Was working on saving my life, and he said, I did all I can do. Now it's up to her. Well, I guess I'm a tough broad just like you, Bonnie. I said, okay, I'm going to live. So
we're resilient.
Yes,
That's right.
yes. So I decided I was going to fight. And it's easy when you have friends and family taking care of you, and you can just, I could just zone out and heal and do whatever they told me to do. I'm not too rebellious, so if I ever get out of line, I have someone to kick me in shape. And
don't give them my number.
No. But anyhow, I thought I was saved, and then I had another bowel obstruction the next month, and I said to the doc, I'm sorry, I said to the doctors, sorry, viewers, take my life, but just don't take my pancreas. I just couldn't imagine going back after I'd gone 8 years. And
how long ago was this?
This was in 2008. And
so 8 years.
8 years, yeah. I had it for 8 years, and now it's been 8 years. And
now the kidney is still functioning.
The kidney's working fine for 16 years, knock on wood, yes. Thank goodness. The immunosuppression's toxic to the kidney, so I will require another transplant eventually. I've already gone almost, I guess the average is 10 years for a cadaver kidney, and I've gone 16, but I'm fine. I don't think about that. I just know in the back of my head. But it was a whole new ballgame over 8 years. I met our friend Joanne Milo, the savvy diabetic, and she was like, okay, you got to get on an insulin pump. You need a Dexcom. Okay. I trusted her, and she was my friend and
you
mentor.
need to put your trust in a very, very safe place.
Right, and so I was reluctant with both.
I didn't want to be the bionic broad.
I know.
No.
I know. It's like I don't want anything attached to me, So, but I relinquished and just okay, I surrender. I'll do it. And I saw how good Joanne was doing. It's a lot of work. It's a
full-time job.
It's a full-time job.
It is. I sometimes wonder how people can do a regular job while being. I don't know. I mean, right? I guess at one point in time I did it, but I still don't know how.
Yeah, but it's 8 years later, and I've learned to get over the sadness of losing my best friend, my pancreas.
Twice.
I know, twice.
Twice.
It was harder the second time, I think.
I hate when that happens.
Oh, I was depressed. I cried a lot.
Well, that's a topic for a whole other show.
Yeah. But I'm doing great now.
Well, I'll tell you, you look terrific, and thank goodness for Joanne on many levels, not the least of which was that she introduced me to my new sister.
Oh, Bonnie.
And I am just delighted that you have chosen to come on and share your stories. Rarely have we had anybody with us who was that honest and in an absolutely dreadful situation, that you're able to keep yourself the way you are heaven forbid it comes up for any of us, we know how to do it if we have to. You do it with grace. And you certainly are a great demonstration of how that is to be done. We wish you only the best.
Oh, thank you.
So before I let you go now, I want you to please share with my audience how they can follow the life and kicks of Sharon Roberson.
I am a nobody. But I'm not a social media maven like everyone.
Can you type?
I can type.
Okay, you got one on me.
They can email me if they want questions.
Email you.
Or Facebook.
See, there's a good one.
Yes, and my
or
email.
If they may have questions.
They can ask you, especially about if your kidneys ever fail, you type 1s. It is the best thing. What happened to me hasn't happened to my friends. I know people that still have both organs functioning and are doing great. Well, great as will ever be. They still have the complications from the diabetes, but I would do a pancreas again in a heartbeat. If you have to have the immunosuppression, anyhow, take all those drugs, you might as well get a pancreas in the deal. Right?
I've never heard it put quite that way. I like it. I think we could make a meme, a mem, a moom, whatever those things are we make.
Two for the price of one.
Why didn't I ever think of that? It's kind of like getting 2 nose jobs, but you only need one. Okay, well, I have to let you go now, and I really am sorry to have to end this interview. But
they can contact me through you.
You see, and she's smart too. Next up, we have some of my views from off of my soapbox, and Dr. Chris Jacobs of My Genteel. Back in 60 seconds.
I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a social worker. When I found out that I had hepatitis C, I was a single mother, and I was absolutely terrified.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, estimates there are close to 3 million baby boomers infected with hepatitis C. Because there can be no symptoms for decades, most don't even know it. But if detected in time, Hep C can be cured, and the treatment is simple.
Today I feel great. I'm a healthy 65-year-old. I bike to work, I go to the gym, and I've cleared the virus.
The CDC is urging everybody born between 1945 and 1965 to get tested. It's an easy one-time blood test that may be covered by insurance.
I got a disease that could have killed me, but I saved my own life by getting tested.
Don't wait. Ask your doctor about getting tested for Hep C, because knowing is everything.
You're tuned in to the Bonnie Sher Show Boomer Life, and I'm pleased right now to be able to welcome Dr. Chris Jacobs of My Genteel onto our show today. Hello, Chris. May I call you Chris?
Hello.
Hello. How you doing there? Thank you for calling in, and let's just jump right into it. Dr. Jacobs has developed a new lancet, which I have already tried now, and I'm going to let Dr. Jacobs explain it, and then I'll come back in. So, Dr. Jacobs, what makes this lancet different than any other lancet?
Well, Bonnie, it's a device to hold a lancet. It can hold any lancet, even though our company makes lancets. But this is a lancet holder or a lancing device.
Right.
You take a regular lancet, you put it into the device, you pick it up, you put it against your skin, and it will draw blood, just as a regular lancet or a lancing device will, but with 2 major exceptions. Exception 1, you are no longer limited to lancing on your fingers. Genteel is what's the name of the device is Genteel. And Genteel is FDA cleared. It's the only one in the world FDA cleared to get blood from anywhere on your body, not just fingertips. The second is there's absolutely no pain. You can give your fingers a break, give your pain nerves a break, and lance on your forearm, on your knee, anywhere, and it's absolutely reliable. Just put Genteel against your skin, push the activation button, and the blood will come up with absolutely no pain.
Well, I can testify to that. The one that you all sent to me, I was amazed. I've been poking these little fingers now for 49 years, and they were screaming. But after chatting with somebody over at your place, and I was told about the fact that I could test above my knees. How did you? I've never heard of that, and I've never seen anybody else be able to do that. And I was even concerned as a T1 when they had talked a while back about that you could use different in your palm or whatever, and then they said but not really for type 1s because of the accuracy. But I will tell you, this matched exactly. The blood came out, there was no pain, and so how long have you... Now, you developed this yourself, sir, am I correct?
Yes, I'm the inventor and hold the patents, and you'd say, well, how come nobody else did it? Well, we do have 6 United States patents on the technology. It's quite unique to Genteel, and the essence of it is, and I can explain it in 30 seconds, it's so simple. Picture the surface of your skin. Now, under the surface of the skin is the blood capillaries. Those are the capillaries that you want to draw blood from. Now, Bonnie, slightly deeper than that are the pain nerves. Well, patent number 1, we can control the depth that the lance goes to such extreme precision that you only reach the blood capillaries but not the pain nerves. Well, the question comes up, well, if you're just lancing that so tiny shallow, how do you get blood up? Step 2, we apply a vacuum immediately after the lancing process. And as every child knows that drinks soda through a straw, vacuum can lift liquid. So we do an extremely shallow, painless lance, as you experienced, anywhere on your body, and this is why it's FDA cleared for anywhere on your body. And the vacuum then draws the blood droplet up, and you test with your regular test strips, your regular meters. There is no difference in that routine or what your insurance covers or doesn't cover.
Excellent. I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time today, but please tell our audience how they can obtain more information.
Oh, yes, please do. Just check our website. It is mygenteel.com, mygenteel.com. And if you want to see some genuine, real user reviews, go to Amazon, look at Genteel, and read the reviews of what people said. And Bonnie, as you know, nobody gets a review on Amazon that's not a genuine review. These are no phony reviews. And there's at least 50 people that have used it
51.
and said it has been life-changed.
51.
51.
51.
Yeah, said, this changed my life.
Well, for that moment, it sure did. I didn't have to swear at anything or anybody or smack my hand down. So thank you for developing this for all of us, and especially that. And thank you for taking your time to be here with us today, Chris.
Well, thank you for presenting Genteel to your audience, Bonnie. It is very appreciated, and mothers love it because they do not have to wake their child up at night to test anymore. Genteel is so painless that they could come in at night, pull the covers back off the shoulder, test the child, and go about their business without having to pull the child's hands out from underneath them. It's a wonderful thing for parents with type 1s.
Well, thank you for developing this, and thank you for telling us about it. And let's keep in touch, and hope to see you here again on the Bonnie Sher Show.
Thank you, Bonnie. I hope to be on your show again, and next time we'll talk about psychology and the psychology of pain, particularly for type 1, and what it means.
Very good. So I look forward to that conversation. Now we have views from the soapbox, and that's my take on who got it right. And my shout down would be, well, who didn't, and should really pretty much be ashamed of themselves. So let's start out with, I'd like to give a major shout out to Type 1 International. This is a group that had pledged to fund a mission to get insulin to Syria, and have been quite successful in this fundraising effort, and noting that there was a real issue here. You can check them out on Facebook, and also you can follow them at #T1 International. And my shout down, come on, shame on Texas lawmakers for advancing a bill that would allow doctors to lie to pregnant women regarding the health of those unborn children. This was reported in the San Antonio Current, and this just makes me want to throw up. But before we say goodbye, I'd like to thank our guests today, John Tarnoff, Sharon Roberson, and of course, Dr. Chris Jacobs. So that's our show. I hope you'll return next week for another 50-minute trip through the land of Bonnie, boomers, and the type 1 diabetes community. Until then, please visit BonnieSher.com. Follow the #1 Bonnie Sher on Twitter. And if you wouldn't mind, give a like to the Bonnie Sings Lena fan page on Facebook. I know many of you are aware of the very special role the late Sammy Davis Jr. played in my career and in my life. He was my mentor and he was my friend. So I end this show Carol Burnett style with a wink and a nod to you, Mr. D. See you next week.